It's not easy to read. Oh gosh, it's like reading concentration camp. Hello, it's very nice to see so many people here who are new to the Armenian Institute. My name is Noritza Matrosyan, and I'm the director of the Armenian Institute since January. We like to call our mission the living Armenian culture as a living experience, and we try to cover all kinds of aspects of Armenian life. We do it through events, lectures, music, eating and drinking together, having some fun. For instance, tomorrow we've got a banquet at the Globe Theatre, an Armenian banquet, which is to celebrate that Armenia, an evening of troubadour, Armenian troubadour music is going to take place. And it's organised by Seta White, and if you would like to go to that, you can possibly find tickets on Monday. I think they've reduced them, and I think it's going to be a wonderful evening. So this is one aspect of some of the work that we do. And today, I'm really happy to introduce Gabriel Kureas, who is a fellow Cypriot. I just fell off a plane yesterday from Cyprus, and he's a lecturer in art history at Birkbeck, and he has dreamed up this idea, this concept of the based on Ottoman history, together with Vasken Pavitian. Just exactly the sort of thing that we need to be doing and want to be doing. I'm not going to introduce everybody or the conference because I think Gabriel is going to do that, and so I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marisa, for your introduction. And just to say a few words about who we are and what we do. So we are part of the Ottoman Pasts, Present Cities workshop, which is funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council of the UK. And when we started, four of us, putting together the idea, we wanted to find out what happened during the Ottoman, the latter years of the Ottoman Empire, which transformed a community where various ethnic communities lived together. The Armenians, the Greeks, the Turks, the Jews, all lived together under some sort of harmony, if we can use that word, which resulted from the beginning of the 20th century to massacres, genocides, and nationalisms throughout the Middle East. So we wanted to go back and see what happened during that particular point in time, but also, most importantly, what can we learn from that period, which can help us to understand the conflicts that are ongoing in the Middle East and North Africa at the moment. So my colleague Jay Prosser, who's sitting there quietly at the back, can say also a few words about our network and our aims.
Yes, I mean, I'll say that the AHRC is actually, Gabriel mentioned we got the money from the AHRC, Arts and Humanities Research Council. That's actually basically the government who've given us quite a lot of money to try and think about what we're calling transcultural exchanges. So memories of transcultural exchange, but also I think we're going to be looking today at absences and losses. And the more that we progress in this research project, and it is an international collaboration with not only academics, but artists, filmmakers, photographers. That's why this is quite exciting for us to have this cross-section today. The more we progress, the more we are finding limits, I think, to transcultural exchange, which we hadn't expected to be so obvious at first, and that's something that we'll take back to the government too, and I think that they'll be interested in. I'll just say also where this comes in terms of our project. So we began in January this year. No, sorry,
No,
January last
year.
year. And we have had 3 workshops now, and we are podcasting the workshop. So we've got a website, and you will be able to, you can view our workshops, our previous workshops online. Vaskan gave a fantastic paper actually on Armenian artists in just a few weeks ago. Right? So he's working very hard for us. That's not online yet on our website, but it soon will be. We are also doing outreach work to different communities, both in London and in Leeds. We'll have a conference in June, which is June the 26th and 27th, and coinciding with that will be an exhibition. And the conference is very much international, bringing together all kinds of work that's been taking place. And the exhibition, the title of that is Visualising the Ottoman City, and that will be at Birkbeck in central London. I think this is really just the beginning of a much larger project, because Ottoman studies has been done by quite conventional historians, and they haven't really looked at transcultural exchange and used contemporary thinking, contemporary media to return to that period. So I'm really excited about today.
Okay, thank you, Jay. And just to outline the format of the afternoon here, so we'll have very short presentations by our 5 speakers here, and then following that we will sit around the table and discuss all together basically what we think about this revisiting, returning through art, as the title of the day is, to explore absences and memory in the Ottoman Armenian period. So to just not to bore you anymore with introductions and all that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Annie King Underwood, who Annie is a producer, director of factual programs with long years of experience in making documentaries covering various parts of the world. However, she has a specialized interest in and understanding of the Middle East region. Much of Annie's challenging and thought-provoking work deals with human, minority, and women's rights. And this afternoon she will talk about resisting dispossession of history through film, inherited memories of trauma, visiting the ancestral home city and land Mersin. Thank you.
The pleasure of remembering had been taken from me because there was no longer anyone to remember with. It felt like losing the co-rememberer, meant losing the memory itself, as if things we'd done were less real and important than they had been. I came across this when I was reading John Green's novel, and it was exactly what I was feeling at that moment. And my co-rememberers, I'm afraid the picture is not very clear. It's my mother and my aunt. My mother, Sirarpi, who's here today, and my aunt, Arpine. Now they are 93 and 91. 6 years ago, 3 of us together, we embarked on a journey to find their mother's home and the place where my mother was born. Our map for the journey were the memories of their mother, Ashalustashjan Ne Zerbeyan. Now, I'll let a few minutes of my film tell you the beginning of our journey. not the beginning. This is not the right one.
No? It's on the end.
Okay, yeah, this is. Sound.
Still stirs extreme emotions, passion, and argument. It is a scar in modern history which will not heal, and it still hangs over the country. The mass killing of Armenians by the Turkish state during the First World War is seen by many as the first genocide of the modern age. Up to 1 million people are believed to have died, but Turkey strenuously denies that charge of genocide. Survivors are now very old, so the memory of what took place is gradually fading. Filmmaker Annie Kim Underwood's mother and aunt were among those who survived, eventually settling in London. After many years in exile in Britain, 2 elderly sisters decided to return with a very simple goal: to try to find their large family house in Turkey. Their Armenian homecoming is both pilgrimage and a detective story, but above all, it's an Armenian take on an issue which divides Turks and Armenians to this day.
I'm sorry, the picture is very long. The line is too much. Too much. Remembering or forgetting is doing gardener's work, selecting, pruning. Memories are like plants. There are those that need to be quickly eliminated in order to help others burgeon, transform, flower. We were going to make my grandmother's memory flower, because memories are actively cultivated by preservation of traces of the past in the present. Also because the process of forgetting have been and still are actively pursued, especially on an official level, through removal of traces that are not considered compatible with the version of Turkey's history. Our collective memory in the diaspora will remain a theoretical concept that deals with abstract ideals unless it is concretized and materialized through physical structures, such as my grandmother's house, and cultural artifacts, such as commemorative rituals, monuments, historical museums, educational systems, the internet, films, and other means. In this way, the collective memory becomes more functional. We embarked on a journey to Turkey to find the house. We landed at Adana airport first, and then we went to Mersin. All three of us, we were in trepidations. And we did not know when we started the journey whether we will find the house or not. My grandmother was with us throughout our journey. All three of us, we were constantly thinking of our grandmother. What did she say? How did she... Oh, she mentioned this. Oh, she didn't mention that. It was constantly going that. We walked around the streets just hoping to come across something that will trigger the memory of what my grandmother had said. And remember, I'm walking around the streets with an 87 and 85-year-old two ladies. So it was quite a sort of exciting thing. They didn't tire. It was amazing. They didn't at all. Then, obviously, we headed for the cemetery, where we walked around the cemetery. Very interestingly, the cemetery in Mersin is the only interdenominational cemetery, i.e. Christians, Jews, Muslims are all buried in this one cemetery. We walked around, we searched, we looked for names. We didn't find any of our relatives there. And as we were looking around really desperately for a familiar name, then we came across two people. This one is the lady on my right here, Lina Nassif. Lina is a Lebanese lady whose four generations ago, her Lebanese family had moved to Mersin. For some reason she had stayed on. She was the only one of her family who had stayed behind, or her father was the only one who stayed. The rest of the family went back to Lebanon. Lina was a mine of information about Mersin. She knew every corner, every place, everything, everybody. Lina told us in the cemetery, don't bother to look in this cemetery here, because this is the new cemetery. The old cemetery, a building has been built over it, it doesn't exist. And we were saying we spent 3 hours in the sort of going around in the cold and everything. But eventually, well, it was part of our journey of discovery. Lina's familiarity with the city and her knowing everything, eventually, with the memories from my grandmother, the information we gave her, the most important information we gave her, was that my grandmother remembered that when they moved out, the military moved in. The moment we said that to Lena, she said, I know which house it is. But she said, let me go and check it. So the next day, the whole evening, we were sort of like, our heart was throbbing, we found it, we found it, we found it. The next day, she came back and she said, I found it. And truly enough, she had found it. This is one of the sessions while Mum and I, we were sitting there going through pictures, maps, and where it could be, etc. The next one. And this is on the steps of the house. The picture is not very clear here. When we found the house, the first thing my mother wanted to do, she wanted to find the marble stairs. But the marble wasn't there. The marble had been taken away. It was very exciting. It was an extremely exciting moment when we found the house. And the house now is an artist club, which is, we couldn't have wished for anything better. The top floor has become an exhibition hall. And when we were there was a beautiful exhibition there. And the administrator of the club couldn't have been more welcoming. And he said, finally, we were trying to find out who owned this building. And finally, we know who owned this building. And the most touching moment was that both my mother and my aunt said, look after the house well as we were leaving. It looks as if you're doing a good job, but look after it well. And that was it. We left. We, the dispossessed of our homes, land, and the Turks dispossessed of their true history, we came together in Mersin for a short while. Thank you.
And thank you very much for sharing that trip. That's so extremely important and interesting trip back to the discovery of that family home in Mersin. But to continue, we'd like to introduce Nuritza Matosyan. Nuritza is the author of two very well-received biographies. The first of the Greek musician Yannis Xenakis, and the second one of Achille Gorky, titled Black Angel, The Life of Achille Gorky, both of which have become subjects of films. Her one-woman show, The Double Life of Achille Gorky, where she impersonated 4 characters in the artist's life, has been performed in over 100 productions worldwide. Nuritza's documentary Hrant Dink, Heart of Two Nations, won the Public's Prize in the Toronto Film Festival. And Nuritza...
Oh, sorry,
Oh, you're looking at your slides.
yeah. Can we go back to the first one? I'm going to try to kind of sketch for you what it's like researching a topic where you have a clue, and that's about all you have. So I'm not telling you a chronological story, and I'm going to show you about 48 slides with 12-second duration. I'd like to read to you some thoughts that I had on the plane coming here yesterday from Cyprus. And if there's time, I'll try to tell you a little bit more about what goes on in the pictures afterwards. So we're quite strict about time, aren't we?
Yes.
I like to be strict about
Good.
time.
Okay, so let's say...
Don't want to waffle on too much.
I will tell you after 12 minutes.
We haven't got to the beginning of my slides yet. We're going right at the end. Keep me.
We are trying to go on number 1, it goes immediately
Oh
to
yes,
number
because
2.
number 1, yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. Okay, let's
Okay.
start with 2. I would like to tell you about my first visit to Turkey in 1995. It was a research trip for my book on Achille Gorky. Why did I set about writing this book? Because Achille Gorky is and was a mystery. He was represented as a Russian or a Georgian. I saw his paintings in a one-man show as an ignorant young student when I came to London. The dark haunted eyes and strong features in his portraits could have been from my very own family, survivors of the Armenian genocide in Turkey. But the colours and washes of the abstract paintings sang a different song. I heard Armenian church music in my head. I saw Armenian scripts looping through these coursing painting abstracts. I discovered that he was Armenian by looking at the catalogue, that he had survived the siege of Van, had become a painter in America, and this gave me no rest because I had never heard of him before. Yet, as Annie also, I think, corroborates this feeling, all through childhood, my grandparents looked past the loss of all they had owned, the trials of their lives were a frustrating and painful puzzle to me. I went to an English school, but I felt that I had no history of my own. I worked through Gorky's art looking for clues and traces of his Armenian roots. I looked at them alongside photocopies I made of stone carvings, bronzes, Van carpets, weaving, illuminated manuscripts. His grandfather had been a priest. I enlarged them on the ceiling of my student room from slides, which I got from the British Museum and all over the place. And don't forget, I hadn't had an Armenian education, so all of this to me was new material and really thrilling. And these pictures, they all shouted their parenthood of Gorky's paintings. His powerful line, his rugged textures, and the matière of the paint, his jewel colours and tender figuration, the integrity of his natural forms, which André Breton had called hybrids. But behind all of it, I felt loss, trauma, and the passion to restore a lost paradise. I wanted to visit Gorky's birthplace. I had started writing the book. I was almost 3/4 of the way through it. And by the way, by this time, I was no longer an ignorant student. I'd written the book and published it on Xenakis. And I had been researching Gorky for at least 25 years. At that time, I felt that I had to find the birthplace and see the landscape in which he was born. But the Turkish government discouraged tourists because Kurdish insurgents in the area were creating all kinds of problems and were virtually in control. How ironic, I thought. They got rid of the Armenians to replace them with the Kurds, who are now taking over an ancient Armenian province. In Van, Vaspuragan, Armenians had been in the majority, freely speaking their own language, unlike that of my grandparents, building schools, churches, and the archetype of a garden city, which is a modern concept. That was what Van was for the Armenian population. It had been an Armenian civilization since way before Christ. Eventually, I went with a group of Armenian Americans on an organized tour. Each person was allowed to visit 2 places, and it was always the birthplace of the mother's family and the father's family. Well, I was greedy. I wanted to go to 3 places: my father's family, my mother's family, and Gorky's family. So we went to Van as part of the itinerary. And in Van, we were in a restaurant, and I went around the tables. I speak Turkish, and I asked the people there if they knew of a village called Horhon. And some of them said no, and finally a couple of old gentlemen said, "Ah, you're looking for gold. We'll come and help you. We'll bring you a spade." And they did say that the village was 17 kilometers south of Van, very close to the lake.